Welcome to Financial Strategies for Seniors, a program designed to help you assure that what you care about is in order for those people you care about while enjoying continuity in your life today. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Peter Janowsky. Peter Janowsky and I have been working together for over 20 years. And during that period in time, we're not just co-hosts, we're not just business partners, we literally are best friends, because you cannot work with somebody for this long a period in time without getting to know and understanding everything about that person. That's also the premise of this show. We are here to try to help everybody who's watching this program come to grips with what they need in their life, to come to grips with what is going to make you strong. And when I say strong, I'm not talking about physical strength. I'm talking about emotional and mental acumen. That which helps you survive every day, that which helps you go forward in the direction of your dreams, so that when, and it's going to happen, things don't go perfect on a given day, you have options. You can find a place deep within that you realize you can find some solace, whether it's a friend, whether it's a prayer, no matter what it is. Today, we are so fortunate to have with us Julie Wexler. Julie is a managing director at the Bristal. And the Bristal is a community living situation, an assisted living, excuse me, I have to say it properly, an assisted living situation with 15 locations on Long Island. I believe that's the number. And what we're going to do right now is go to Julie, start a conversation going. We have lots of questions for Julie, and Peter and I have lots of opinions. And I think as time goes on with this program, you're going to realize our goal, our only goal, is to bring honest information to you so that you can make decisions based on facts. Emotions always have to come into it, emotions with your family, but first we need to deal with the facts. Julie, hello, and thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm really happy to be here, John and Peter. Thank you so much for the invitation.
No, it's our pleasure. What I need to start with today is just a very broad, what is assisted living? There's people sitting at home watching this and saying, what is it? I mean, you see buildings going up all over Long Island. Mm-hmm. Is it something for me?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because I work every day trying to sort of break the preconceived notion of what senior living and what assisted living is, because the industry has changed so much in the last couple of decades. I think when we hear senior living or assisted living, especially for the older generation that we're working with, their mind automatically goes to that old age home of yesteryear, right? They have this impression of very frail older adults in wheelchairs and a very clinical and institutional type environment.
Just to interrupt you for 1 second, my grandmother was in our basement for a while. Then she came upstairs when a bedroom became available, and then she was in one of those types homes, but it wasn't a good life. It was tough. It was very hard.
So the fact of the matter is that people are living longer, right? We know people are living longer, and we know the baby boomers are aging as well.
Right.
And those two things in the last few decades have converged. And baby boomers have higher expectations for quality of life. And because of the increase in the aging population, there are more options, more senior living options for people. And the Bristal Assisted Living in particular here on Long Island, being a company that has been sort of born and bred on Long Island, if you will, has really raised the bar of what assisted living is. So senior living communities now, particularly the Bristal, are luxury environments. You walk into our communities, it's like walking into a five-star hotel. Right? We have pianos in the entrance, we have beautiful dining areas and libraries and movie theaters, and residents have their own apartment, right? It looks just like a regular apartment when you walk in. So it's not a hospital room, but a real apartment with your own private bathroom and your own bedroom. And so there are opportunities for older adults who are facing the challenges of living in a home that may have been built back in the 1950s and 60s. Right. Those homes weren't necessarily built for people to be able to age safely in them, right? We have stairs and leading to the basement and laundry in the basement and stoops up to the front door and doorways that might not be wide enough for a walker or bathrooms that might not be handicapped accessible. So they move.
I'm just going to jump in here for 1 second. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It sounds wonderful, but is this something that a person has the opportunity to come and get a complete review and a tour of the place? I mean, years ago, you were just put into the home.
Yes.
It wasn't a matter of, the curtains don't match the sheets and I'm not happy with this. Is this a situation where I can actually go and say, listen, Julie, I'd like to see what this is about?
We always encourage families to come in because with the growth of the number of communities, and even within the growth of the Bristal being 15 communities right here on Long Island, every building is a little bit different, right? The aesthetic is a little bit different. The apartments might be a little bit different. The amenities, it has a pool, it doesn't have a pool, it has maybe a men's club, it doesn't have a men's club. Every building is a little bit different. So we want to make sure, because it's about choice, right? And we know that people want to have that sense of being in control and being, still being able to make that choice. So when you call us, we ask you a lot of questions when you make that initial phone call, right? And we typically know that it's a difficult time for families when they're making that first phone call, right? But we really want to get to know you. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know whether it's you who are calling for yourself for assisted living, but more often it's the adult children that are calling. And we really want to get to know what your needs are and also what your financial means are, right? Because we want to make sure that this is going to be a good fit for your family. We always encourage you to come in for a visit. We want to make sure that it's going to be the right fit for everyone. Typically, I encourage, especially if the older adult is frail or maybe has cognitive impairment, I generally suggest to families to come in first on your own. Not because you're trying to be tricky or go behind mom's back, but because it can be a very overwhelming process. And we want to make sure that you're walking into a community that is the right fit. Because I've seen often times people going into an assisted living that maybe isn't the right fit. Maybe the aesthetic's not right, or maybe the population is frail, and maybe mom is a little bit more independent. And you see, I told you this wasn't for me, right? So, and then the conversation's over. So if you can go, if you're the adult child and you're looking for senior living for your mom, go first, scope them out. Know which ones are going to be doable for your family financially, which ones are going to be the right fit. And then you're giving mom the choice. I searched, these are the two best ones for us. Let's go take a look.
It makes sense to screen it out. I know during this time of COVID, it's probably not happening, but were there regular tours given? Or?
So for a long time there were not. Even during the height of the pandemic, we still had families, the need was there and people continued to move into our communities. But we did virtual tours, right? Because we needed to limit the number of people that were coming into the building that didn't need to be there. So we had created a system of having virtual tours. But we are open for tours now. Families can come in by appointment. And we encourage that. We want people to come in and see the building.
One thing that we had talked about, Julie and I, outside before we started, is when the adult child goes and looks at a place and says, Mommy wouldn't be happy here, but you would like this place, and different amenities are important. There also is the financial aspect, which is very important. Peter happens to be a financial fiduciary, but that's important because you need to sit down either with an attorney, an elder law attorney, or a financial fiduciary, because things should be put in place. If you're going to make this step, which I think is a tremendous step, you have to make it 100%. And why turn around a year down the road and find out you didn't do all the necessary steps and wind up losing a lot of money? You're not losing it to the Bristal. You're losing it to the government, and stuff like that needs to be taken care of.
I'll share a little story with you, and this is one of the reasons why John and I are so adamant about planning ahead. When I was a young guy and I was working during the day and going to school at night, I was taking care of my father who had cancer. I was an only child. My grandmother lived in Brooklyn, 40 miles away, so I used to go to visit a couple of times a week to make sure she ate and bathed. And all this time, no one ever told me to plan. And I was clueless. I wasn't in the business yet. It was a long, long time ago. And to sum it up, we lost everything. And shouldn't say losing it, because we paid for it. There are other ways of getting, help to pay for it. And my dad died, and I moved my grandmother in with my mother. And over time, unfortunately, finally had to put her in a home because my mother was older at that time already. She had me late in life. My mother was in her 70s. And couldn't do anything. We had nothing set up. She lost her co-op. She lost a bunch of stock, and it may not have changed my mother's life, but it would have made certain things easier. So I am the poster child for, but I mean, it's not that I chose not to plan. Like John always says, doing nothing is a choice. It's usually a poor choice. I wasn't even given the choice because I was completely unaware. So
I just want to follow up on that. That's a perfect story because you did the right thing from a love perspective. He took care of his father for years while his father was dying, then his grandmother, then his mother, and unfortunately, which is society and which is finances today, lost stuff. Planning-wise, stuff could have been taken out of his mother's name and his grandmother's name, and some things would have been saved. Did he do the right thing as a son? Yes. And my primary thing in life, you do the right thing as a son first. You love your mother, you love your grandmother, whoever it's going to be. But the goal of this show is just to bring to people's attentions there's options. Pay attention to the options and then move forward. Don't ever sacrifice for money your parent or your grandparent, but it doesn't hurt to put it in the equation as you move along.
Yeah, and most of the families who are moving into our communities, something in their life is in transition, right? Mom can no longer be maintained safely in the home, so they're selling the house. Dad has recently passed away. Something has happened in the family's life that has made this transition necessary. And so I encourage families all the time to go visit an elder law attorney, go speak to a financial planner. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how long Mom is going to live, but we want to make sure that things are legally and financially in place to enable her to live with dignity, with independence, and with the care and the quality of life that she's accustomed to and that she deserves.
Right, I'm agreeing. And by going to a place like the Bristal, you've experienced it so many times that you would be a source of information to turn around and say, listen, make sure you take care of some stuff. Don't just sign on the dotted line.
So we talk about source of information because we come across this a lot in our business, I'm sure in yours too. People seem to get information from questionable sources. And even though you trust this friend and you trust the cousin, and my cousin said this, my friend said
my
that.
cousin Vinny.
I highly urge everybody who's watching this to go to the source. Research is not watching a YouTube video. That's I know a lot of people like to do things on their own, but we come across it a lot. My friend said this is a good investment. Well, I have a friend that's getting 12%, and then you did. Like it's just go to the source. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your friends,
right?
But it's very important to like you say, physically go and look at the locations.
Yeah, but you have somebody like Julie, who is a director, who this is your life, this is your living. Why would I ask somebody who says, oh, I heard about a place, or I saw a TV show? People do it. They'll turn around and reference something because I heard the ad on the radio and say, oh, I have such and such a disease. Why? Oh, because it said it on the radio. I have a bad finger in something else. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But, that's people's mind. That's the gullibility. And then you read about, which we're not doing today, but we will over time on this program, scams. The number of people have gotten scammed is because you listen and you think. And we're talking, in Nassau County, this is an interesting statistic, in Nassau County, and we'll come right back to Julie, basically everything under Laura Curran and Commissioner Ryder has improved within Nassau County, except for scams. It's the only crime that has increased in the last year. Everything else is down. North Hempstead is considered one of the best places to retire to from U.S. News and World Report. You put this whole Nassau together, it's a great, great place. Scams. And so, what Peter's saying, what we're talking about, is very, very important to make sure that you go into these things aware. Awareness is it. And by giving these interviews and visits, I'm sorry, I couldn't get
tours.
Tours. Wow.
Tours. Yeah.
Tours is very important.
The whole screening process. But so we're kind of on the subject of planning right now. How do people pay for this?
So there are a number of different ways that people pay for the cost of assisted living. So the Bristal is it's private pay for the most part. It's savings. It's people who are selling their home. They were fortunate enough to have purchased their home. many decades ago, and the home is no longer safe for them or meeting their needs, and so they're selling their home, and that's how they're able to afford to live at our communities. So that's one way, through the sale of the house or other private pay assets they might have, savings, investments. That's where you come in, right? That's how they're paying for the cost of senior living. Long-term care insurance. Many policies do cover the cost of assisted living. All of our communities are licensed by the New York State Department of Health. And so if your particular policy covers assisted living, as long as you meet the requirement, typically being having a dementia diagnosis or requiring assistance with 2 or 3 activities of daily living, the long-term care insurance policy should kick in. The policies that we see from our, the residents that are moving into our communities, the average age being in the mid to upper 80s, typically have pretty generous policies that were purchased many years ago, and so that is how they're able to live in our communities. There is a benefit through the Veterans Administration called the Aid and Attendance Program, which is a small stipend, if you will, eligible for veterans with certain financial requirements. It doesn't pay for all of assisted living, but it does give you a small monthly benefit for the veteran as well as for the surviving spouse. So if you're the surviving spouse of a veteran and that person would have been eligible for this aid and attendance program, then you too will be eligible for it. And then the third way, or the fourth way that people pay for the cost of assisted living is through Medicaid. There are only a few assisted living communities in New York, or in Long Island in particular, that accept Medicaid for payment. The Bristal being sort of a luxury brand, most of our communities do not. But we do have 2 communities now, the Bristal Lynbrook as well as the Bristal in Westbury, that do have a certain number of beds set aside for folks who are Medicaid eligible. Wow. And the idea is that, as I said before, people are living longer, right? And with that, very often we see people outliving their resources and their ability to pay for the cost of assisted living. So this enables people to stay within the Bristal family, right? So if you're living at the Bristal, maybe for a number of years, and now your resources are running low, you have the option to now apply for Medicaid and get one of those beds that are paid for through Medicaid.
Okay, that's my question, and then I want to go into another topic, but do you go in starting on Medicaid, or Medicaid becomes the secondary because you were self-pay for a while, or an LTC for a while, there's something out of pocket for a while, and then you run out of money, and then Medicaid kicks in?
So the Bristal being somewhat new to the Medicaid system, there are some people who are moving in now already on Medicaid. I mean, we do expect you to be able to pay privately, at least to start, because those beds that we do have in these 2 communities are really being offered to our current residents first.
Right.
So if you are a current resident and you're paying privately, you really have a much better chance, assuming that you meet the financial and the clinical requirements for this program through the state.
See, that we bring up to clients all the time, because there's a different rate that the Bristol's going to be getting from private from long-term care, and then from Medicaid, which is a much lower level of reimbursement. So of course, that's your last choice. When it happens, it happens.
Correct.
Actually, at this point in time, we want to take a moment to discuss what we're doing with this program. And we're talking money here in reference to a little fundraising. And last week we started, and I didn't talk to Erica to find out how we're doing, but I know this is going to work. We're asking people to put North Shore TV on a monthly contribution. And the monthly contribution we're asking for is $11.11. Very simple, very easy number. We are located at 1111 Marcus Avenue, which makes it nice and easy. But 1111, and we talked about it next week, and we're going to have somebody on from the Awareness Shop, which is actually up in Rochester, New York, but they're going to be coming on to discuss New Age things. And 1111 is one of the most significant numbers in astrology, numerology, etc. It is the beginning. When you see 1111, like on a digital computer, think of what you're doing at that point in time. It's a very intuitive number. It's a number that you're supposed to reflect and say, why am I here? And it's unusual, Peter and I, because it's unusual. We're unusual in that we're investment advisors. I also have a master's in gerontology and thanatology, and I'm a Reiki master, which is a whole different world, and a chakra therapist. So I'm out there with some people scratching their heads saying, what the hell is John Ryan doing? But I have to follow my philosophies. When you give, and I don't care what it is, 1111, you're helping North Shore TV, but you're helping people who are watching the show and getting the information from Julie, and will be sitting home and say, I got to call up Julie, and I got to call up Mommy this afternoon. I think we have something here. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to accomplish, and we will, and we're going to keep doing it. So that's my push, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to have different programs. We're going to have so many different people on during the course of the following weeks and months. But we need your help no matter what we do. We can't have people like Julie coming for nothing. We want everybody to learn, to appreciate, but more important, to feel. When you feel something is working with inside you, that is the best thing. I can't push anything down anybody's throat, and I'll never try. But when you do something and you have that aha moment, like, wow, I get it. I get it for Mommy, I get it for Daddy, I get it for myself. That's what we're trying to do here. We are so fortunate that North Shore TV has partnered up with us to come across and bring this to our viewers, that I just want to make sure it works, okay? And that's my speech. I'm sticking to it, but I just think, and it's because of things like this that we can have people like Julie. And so now, if you want to say something, we're going to go back to the show.
So a little history on me and John. 20 years ago, we did a radio show on Saturday mornings, and we would have some trivia questions and call-ins, and we would give out prizes. So I was reminiscing about that, and I realized, we should give something back if somebody wants to donate the $11.11, and we'll offer a complimentary portfolio review.
Oh, okay.
And we'll sit down with anyone who wants it. It's an offer. All they have to do is send in their contact information, name, phone number. We'll give you a call and see if we can help you in any way. It'll be on us, and that's just in lieu of, not in lieu, but as a thank you for the 1111. I know it's not as good as a tote bag from PBS, but it still can be exciting.
I agree. And the whole purpose of this program is to learn.
Yeah. And that's how we could give back. And I have no idea where we left off with Julie.
No, we're hopping all over the place because it's a conversation, and that's the other thing I like about this. There is no script. I have papers scrolled around, and I spoke.
I know there's no script.
I spoke with Julie a couple of times because when anybody's coming on, we all have to be on the same page. Otherwise, there'd be no reason. And I have Julie on. We have Julie on because I respect you. I respect your information. If I didn't, and I'm being very honest, there's other people, and I wouldn't go there. What I'd like to talk about, a little bit of a jump, is activities of daily living, because people get them confused. Mm-hmm. And I know them, but I don't know them well. And so all of a sudden somebody throws at you, so long as you have the 2 or 3 ADLs. It's like, what are you talking about? But that's important, especially for the long-term care insurance to kick in.
Correct. And we do have a wellness office in all of our communities to be able to, and staff there, nurses, LPNs, as well as personal care aides, who can provide assistance with activities of daily living if you need it. Activities of daily living, think about it as anything that you need hands-on assistance. You might need help getting dressed. That's an activity of daily living. Okay. But maybe you just have arthritis in your hands and you need help buttoning your buttons, or maybe you need full hands-on assistance because, with getting your pants on or getting your shoes on or getting your shirt on.
Arthritis would be considered if I can't button my shirt.
If you're getting assistance with getting dressed is an ADL, an activity of daily living. It could be taking a shower, right? Getting in and out of the shower is a big fall risk for people who are a little unsteady and for older adults. So you might need full showering assistance, and all of our bathrooms at our communities are, handicapped accessible. So even if you're in a wheelchair, we can help you with that shower. Or maybe you just need a little bit of assistance getting in and out of the shower. So showering would be assistance with activities of daily living. Toileting assistance, right? So people who might just be, once again, have some weakness and need help getting on and off the toilet, or somebody who needs, might be incontinent and wearing, adult garments to help with that. So anything that's hands-on assistance, maybe help getting up from a chair to, to the walker. Anything hands-on assistance would be considered an activity of daily living, and we can help you with that. And we do an assessment before you move in to determine whether or not you need that level of care. I'd like to talk a little bit, though, about who assisted living is good for, right? So I like to break it down into 3 categories. Right?
Okay.
We have many folks who are independent. They're just of advanced age. So think of your typical 94-year-old who's still living in the house. They're still driving. They're still going to their senior center. But they're lonely, and they're finding it hard to live in the house. And maybe they even know that, listen, I'm pretty fortunate now, but I know that things are not going to stay this way. I want to be proactive, and I want to move someplace that's safe now, where I can continue to be independent, where I can continue to age safely, where I'm not moving because I have to, but I'm moving for the lifestyle reasons, because I like the idea that somebody's going to cook 3 meals a day for me. I like the idea that there's going to be somebody downstairs that I can go to in the morning and pick up my newspaper. I like the idea that I can sit in the bistro and have a cup of coffee with my girlfriends. I like the idea of knowing that in the middle of the night, if I don't feel well, I can pull an emergency pull cord. I can press a pendant, and within a couple of minutes, somebody's going to be there to help me. And so people choose to move to the Bristal for lifestyle reasons and for safety. Those are our independent folks. Okay. Then there's some, people who need assistance with activities of daily living. You might be a little bit frail, and so maybe getting in and out of the shower is becoming unsafe for you, or maybe you do need that little bit of help. You don't need an aide sitting next to you 8 hours a day, but you need a little bit of help in the morning getting out of bed. You need a little bit of help at night getting ready for bed. Or maybe you're on 10 medications, and you know what? This is becoming a full-time job for your daughter, and so you're moving to the Bristal so that the Bristal can help you with that little bit of help to enable you to stay independent, right? So people who need a little bit of extra hands-on assistance with activities of daily living, or maybe need some medication management. And then you have folks, the third category of folks who move to our communities are people with cognitive impairment. We know that when you're 65 years old, you have a 1 in 2 chance of having a dementia diagnosis. I'm sorry, a 1 in 10.
Oh,
at 65,
1 in 2.
At 65, it is 1 in 10. By the time you are 85, it is 1 in 2. And those are the statistics. It is staggering, and it's wonderful.
The 1 in 10 is,
1 in 10
is
at
pretty
65.
high. That's still pretty high.
And 1 in 2 by the time you are 85. And with people living longer, the fact of the matter is many are going to develop some kind of cognitive impairment by the time they're 85. Half of us will. And so we know that living alone can become increasingly unsafe for folks with memory impairment. It also is a terrible financial, emotional, psychological burden on families to have to manage the symptoms of an Alzheimer's diagnosis, whether the person is a wander risk, and perhaps they're, the family is afraid they're going to walk out of the house in the middle of the night. Or are they, they had their lunch, but they don't remember that they had lunch, and now they're becoming agitated because you didn't give them lunch, right? These are all things that can happen, caring for an older adult with memory loss. And so we at the Bristal, all of our communities have a secured memory neighborhood we call Reflections, right? So we have what we call the assisted living side of the building, where the independent folks and the folks that need assisted living live, and then we have Reflections, which is a secured memory neighborhood. And it's really a smaller, more structured, more supportive environment for folks with memory loss.
Totally segregated, or they can go back and forth?
Not by themselves.
Okay.
They may utilize the movie theater on the assisted living side, or perhaps there's an entertainer, but they're always going to be supervised,
Okay.
right? These are folks who really can't be on their own accord, so they need to be in a more supervised and structured environment. And at the Bristal, even the physical space is designed to support people with memory loss. Many of our memory neighborhoods are designed circular, so for people who like to walk, they can still do that, and they can do it safely, and the family doesn't have to worry about them wandering away.
You mentioned this is every location.
This is at every location.
Right.
And in addition to that, it's specialized staff training, right? Because you have to, if you're working with a person with dementia, you have to know how to properly communicate with them. You have to know how to properly motivate them, because with dementia, very often goes their ability to communicate, not only expressive language, but being able to express that they're in pain, being able to express that they have to use the restroom, being able to express that they're hungry, but also receptive language, understanding what the aide is asking them to do. So it is a skill. And we spend a lot of time and effort and energy making sure that the folks who work in our memory neighborhoods are the right people, right? Because you have to have the heart for it, but are also properly trained. And that the people who live in our memory neighborhoods can still live a wonderful life. There's still music, there's still activities, they're still eating gourmet food, they're still going on trips. So it recreates life for so many of our people who have memory loss. Now, just because you have memory loss doesn't mean that you're automatically going to have to move into reflections.
Right.
We do an assessment when you're going to move in to determine where the right fit would be. But there are certain things that we look for when we are doing those assessments to determine whether or not being on the assisted living side or being in reflections is going to be a better fit for you. Right here in the town of North Hempstead, I want to mention that we do have the Bristal at Lake Success. That Bristal is actually all memory care. So that community opened up about 4 years ago.
That's right on the highway, right?
Yep, it's on the north side of the service road, and it's all memory care. So the entire building is dedicated to supporting older adults in varying degrees of dementia.
I'm not jumping in and giving any accolades to Peter and myself, even though we deserve them. But we have a client, not a lot of them, but we have a few, but one specific one, that the mom is suffering from dementia. Everything was taken care of legally, which we took care of for her with an elder law attorney, etc. But when they come to visit us, and we do it out of courtesy because she's entitled to know what's going on, even though she doesn't know what's going on, the daughter just fights with her the whole time. And it's like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Mommy, that was wrong. It's like, oh, please just let her go with it. Don't correct her because she doesn't know what you're talking about. And you did this and Daddy did that and 6 years ago, and she's staring blankly. Just work with her. I'm not saying lie to her, but she's getting upset. She's starting to cry. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yes, the daughter is right. I'm not saying she's not right, but there's a time and a place. Mommy's not signing anything. She has no legal, nothing legal that she could hurt herself by signing. Nothing would be accepted. Let Mommy go with the flow. Just say, hi, Mommy. Okay, Mommy, I agree with you. So what? The flower's not pink. If you think it's pink, it's pink. I don't care. It's just something that people have to be cognizant of. Give a little. And I read this thing recently, and I'm paraphrasing it, don't be upset with me because I can't do what I used to be able to do. Think about how I feel. Because every now and then I'm sure you realize, it's like, I wish I could climb the stairs, but I can't.
Right.
I feel bad. I don't need you adding to my angst.
And Mom is not giving you a hard time.
Right.
She's having a hard time.
Exactly.
And it's so hard for families, and we see this often, and my heart goes out to this client of yours. And I just want to remind people that we are so fortunate here on Long Island to have many organizations that can support families. Because I think if the daughter understood where the disease process and what's happening in Mom's brain that's creating the behavior, the repetitive questioning, the defiance or the difficulty or the not utilizing being able to perform activities of daily living. If she understood what's happening in the brain, it's easier to accept it.
Yeah.
And so I really always, and we encourage families to reach out to these organizations, and I'm certainly available to make those referrals for any of your viewers, to organizations right here on Long Island where you can speak to a live person, a social worker, or another expert in dementia to get the support and knowledge that you need. And you might also consider joining a caregiver support group. Our communities at the Bristal, we run caregiver support groups because we know how important it is for families to get the support, not just the emotional support, but the practical support to understand how to properly care for people with dementia.
You brought up a great point, though. It's the education of what's actually going on in someone's body, because emotionally it's very hard to accept watching someone you love fade away like that. And most people don't want to give in and accept that reality. But the education is very important about that. I never thought of it like that.
And for some reason, when somebody has heart disease, you don't tell somebody to, your heart should work better. We don't say that. But for some reason, when people with a brain disease have behaviors, we think that they have control over it, and they don't. And that's a hard thing for families to accept.
Yeah. It's very difficult.
It is frustrating because you have your mother or your father, aunt or uncle, that's acting like the 2-year-old, your grandchild. But the grandchild you think is great. You pick him up and put him on your lap, even though he just threw the ice cream on the floor.
Yeah.
That's acceptable.
Yeah,
but when your 85 or 95-year-old mother does it, you're yelling at her. Why? I mean, it's anyway, this is my pet peeve because we do it enough, and we deal with a lot of seniors for that very reason, which is what sent me back to school years ago. I was working with somebody. We weren't working together yet, and I called them a victim. And somebody was at me at the table and said, "John, they're a survivor, they're not a victim." And I said, "But I don't care what I said. If you're saying it with love, I'm not insulting the person." I said, "You poor thing, you're such a victim," because they were being abused by their daughter. Whole different situation. So then I decided to take a class in a gerontology class up in New Rochelle, and I stayed there for 2 years. 2 years later, I had my degree. But as you went through it, you realize, I mean, it's this whole greatest generation thing. We owe the seniors everything. And eventually they'll owe me something, they'll owe you something, you owe something. Work with respect, work with love, that's all. Because you're going home that night, and I say this to my wife all the time, 8, 9 out of 10 times when you get the phone call, the mommy died during the night, it's going to break your heart because you were nasty to her during the day. For what purpose, I don't know. Did it really help you? I'm going to continue on this little rant for a few minutes and go back to my 11/11 because I just think that, again, programming like this is so important. And here we're talking a major, 15 locations on Long Island. The Bristal is a major, major business, a major organization. But the premise from which it's built really is love and support and caring, because once you stop giving that to your residents, they're walking away. If I go there and I see my mother doesn't have clean clothes, or I see this is happening, that's happening, I'm going to say, Julie, this is not what we signed up for. I'm bringing my mother home, or I'm going to find another place. That's what we have to do. And by helping North Shore TV by giving $11.11, which is such a small amount, on a monthly basis to keep programming like this going, I just think is tremendous. I'm going to talk into the TV directly. I think it's tremendous because we need programs like this, simple as they are, for people to wake up and say, I care. Everybody at this table cares. All the people at North Shore TV care. And why? Because we're caring hearts. And any little bit, even if there's one person that gets helped, that's one person that we succeeded with. The address is 1111 Marcus Avenue. They will put the address up during the program. You call our number, which is 516
719 63 96.
I've been there for 5 years. Someday I'll remember my phone number.
We could do a ventriloquist act.
I swear to God. But you call that number. Peter's right. If you want to give to North Shore, not if you want to, you should be giving. You can call for a financial review if you want it. But more importantly, I would like you to call and give us a topic you'd like discussed. We are willing to get the guests. We'll go around, we'll find them. We have Julie today, but Julie can help us find another guest. We're all going to be working together for your benefit, okay? So again, the number is 516-719.
6396.
I like it. It's a team. It's a teamwork.
Tag team.
It's $11.11. I haven't checked this with Erica, but we're going to start because I want this stuff coming in. And I want also, if you want somebody acknowledged, we'll do that too. If somebody's birthday is coming up, you want to wish them a happy birthday, do it. So that mommy watches the show or daddy watches the show, and during the show, we're going to wish them a happy birthday from everybody here at North Shore TV. And they're going to love that. You'd be surprised what a senior loves. All of a sudden, you're going to start calling their friends. They were mentioned on TV for $11.11. That's it. We're going to go back now to Julie because I think this is a tremendous show, and I think what the Bristal is offering the residents of Long Island is just tremendous.
Yeah, we're going to call you Willard Scott.
Well, okay.
Right? He used to wish everybody a happy birthday, right?
Oh, that's the guy. Okay, I'm saying, who's he?
It was a while ago. I kind of remember that. Yeah, right.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about what the transition to assisted living looks like.
That's a good one. That's a hard one.
I joke sometimes and say nobody does cartwheels into assisted living, right? There's always a level of resistance, right? Moving is hard at any age, right? Even young people, moving's hard.
Just hold a thought. I have one question. Can you go as a couple?
Of course.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And we have apartments that can accommodate couples, 1-bedroom apartments, 2-bedroom apartments as well. Yep. So the transition, to assisted living, it can be a difficult one. We do have some people who very willingly move in, right? Because they're ready to get rid of the house and not have to worry about the snowstorms and the grocery shopping, and they're lonely, and they know that moving to a senior living community, and that's really what it is a community, is going to be a benefit to them, and as well, give peace of mind to their families. But there's always that trepidation, right? And so our team, and we are a team at each one of our communities, we know how to do this, right? We do this every day. And so we certainly have systems in place to ensure that people are adjusting well, and that they're meeting new people, and that they're coming down to the dining room, and it's not like walking into the middle school cafeteria where you don't know anybody, but we're matching them up with other people who are going to have similar interests, and who are the welcoming committee, if you will. We have ambassadors at all of our communities that help to welcome in the new residents. So I can tell you that the vast majority of the people who move into our communities, they realize very soon after they get there how much better their quality of life is. And not just theirs, but that of their families, because their family is not having to worry where the next meal is coming from. Did mom take her medication? Is mom lonely today? And when you're moving somebody into memory care, that's even an additional layer of difficulty, because that person might not have been able to make that decision on their own. And so you're really making that decision for them, and you're making this major life transition, and also a major financial decision, because it is a financial decision. Or maybe you promised Dad, 10 years ago before he passed, well, we promised Dad we would never put Mom in a place, right? But maybe that was before you knew that the communities like the Bristal existed, where you had that old idea of what assisted living is. Not this beautiful, safe, enriching, social, fun place for people to live, and that's really what it is. Or maybe you didn't realize that Mom's dementia was going to progress to a point where her quality of life is diminished, your quality of life is diminished, and it's really just no longer safe anymore. So you choose to move to a place that's designed for her. So I can tell you, when I worked in a couple of our communities, and we always call the family the next morning, let them know how the first night went. Right? Okay. And sometimes the family would get to me before we could get to them, where I could talk to our nurses and our overnight team and see how things went. And people would say to me, "Oh, are you ready for me to pick up my mother?" Thinking that Mom was, pounding on the door and agitated and wanting to get out of there. And Mom is having breakfast with her 3 new girlfriends right now. And it always said something to me when I saw that, because it reinforced the fact that what we're doing it right. And that everything is designed to support Mom. And once Mom is in a place where the physical space is designed for her, where the staff are properly trained, where even the way that we're serving the meal, the way that we're running activities is designed to support and validate her, she doesn't have to work so hard anymore.
Right.
She feels safe. And sometimes, there are bumps in the road. It doesn't always go, smoothly, but we have an amazing team of nurses. We have an amazing management team, and we will work together to find solutions for families and to ensure that everyone is safe and happy.
I think what people have to do today is not just open your heart, you have to open your mind, because if you go back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, make it 15 years ago when I started this journey and started going back to school, there's two things that I thought were terrible for a parent to do. Send your child to daycare. I have 3 girls. My wife took off from work when she had the first baby and didn't go back until they were, like, the youngest was 12. I was so much against any sort of daycare. And I was against any sort of retirement, assisted living. That's why our grandmother was with us, and then when it was so bad, she went into a home, but that was the prepare to die. I mean, she was there for a... Fast forward, there is nothing that I promote today more than daycare, which helps the children acclimate to society. They are so much more vibrant. It's the truth. It's just like, I push, if you can afford it, put the child into daycare. You're not turning your back on them. I always looked at it as you're turning your back on a loved one. And to go to the Bristal, and I've been into Bristal, and I've been to different assisted livings, you walk in, these ladies and the men, they're smiling, they're happy. Who wants to live in somebody's basement? I thought you were doing the right thing, but it's so nice what you just said. I want to go down and see Susie. I'm going to have a cup of coffee. An hour later, you can go up and take a nap, and I'll say, we'll go to the movies tonight. Yeah, we're going to go to the movies. I'll come back later.
Yeah, and I know before you were talking about activities of daily living and the physical help, but that's only one piece of what assisted living is, because it's also it solves the nutrition challenges, right? Where mom isn't eating well, she's not drinking. Now she landed in the hospital and she's dehydrated, right? Now she's in a beautiful dining room. She's having her glass of wine with dinner. She's got a menu of.
Oh, you push alcohol?
Not necessarily push it, but a glass of wine with dinner is always nice. And she has a menu to choose from, and she's with her peers. She's eating with people, right? So it solves that problem. It solves the problem of not being able to get out to your doctors, because we have doctors and podiatrists and other healthcare providers that come into our building to provide that for you. So everything is under one roof, and very often when older adults are no longer driving, that is, the thing that happens in their life that can really affect their independence. But by moving to a community like the Bristal, where everything is under one roof, they don't have to worry about now their grocery shopping because we're cooking the meals for them. They don't have to worry about getting to the senior center because there's activities going on from 10 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. They don't have to worry about getting it to their doctor because the primary care physician is coming right into the building. So all these things that start to become more difficult, assisted living can solve those problems for them.
Which is so important, because,
No, I was going to say, just going to doctors, you also have nurses on staff, like that they're there, but the doctors are coming in. Could people see their own doctors, or?
Yep, your choice. We like for folks to utilize the physicians that come into our communities, because it's much better communication between our nursing team and those doctors that have office hours in our building. And so if a prescription changes, or maybe it's 5:30 on a Friday night and you're not feeling well, we can have just a lot easier communication, but it's not necessary. If you want to continue to use your physician that you've used for the last 25 years and he's, a few blocks away, that's perfectly fine. You can do that as well.
Another question, like transportation. Like, let's say, do you provide transportation to a doctor? Like, let's say the doctor's 15 miles away.
Yeah,
and this person wants to see that doctor.
So the Bristal, we do not provide transportation for medical appointments. So that would be something that the family would have to provide. The kind of transportation that we do provide, however, because we have our bus at all of our communities, and so you might see them out and about in the neighborhood. We take trips to TJ Maxx and to Target and the dollar store and the post office and the bank. So those kinds of things that, shopping trips or the museum or to the beach or whatever, the residents want to do, those kinds of trips are available for residents. So we'll provide transportation for those kinds of things, but not for medical appointments.
Okay. I want to touch on.
I thought you had a question.
I do. And we've kind of touched on it, but I just want to make sure it's clear. You have assisted living, and then I was talking about, and we were all talking about nursing home, etc. Just to make that clear.
Okay, the difference.
I mean, there is a big difference.
There is a difference,
because I'm going to turn around and say, oh, you're in that nursing home. You're not in the nursing home if you're at the Bristal.
Correct.
There's a big difference, but nursing home is still there.
Yep. So think of a nursing home, it's a medical facility, right? And so if you require the supervision of medical staff 24/7, or you have health needs that are excessive, then a nursing home might be the right fit for you.
Right.
But your older adult who is walking with a walker, who needs a little bit of help with assistance with activities of daily living, who might have a little bit of memory loss, they're not even going to be accepted by a nursing home, right? Those are the folks that would be appropriate for assisted living. Does the time come that our residents have to move to skilled nursing? It does sometimes happen. Most of our Bristol communities have now what's called the Enhanced Assisted Living License. And that is really an effort on the part of the state to keep people out of nursing homes, because things like insulin injections or things like wheelchairs, that shouldn't mean you need to go to a nursing home. So in many assisted livings that have this enhanced license, and most of our Bristol communities do, we can provide that level of care, which enables people to age in place. So you come in pretty independently, and as time goes on, if you require the use of a wheelchair, or you maybe have diabetes and you require insulin injections several times a day, or maybe you need a pureed diet because swallowing has become difficult for you, we can do that. So there's a range of folks that we can provide a safe quality of life for.
That's huge. And especially, I mean, obviously that's going to be dictated by the doctor, and the doctor's going to give you the instructions, and then you'll follow them through for the client.
Exactly. Very often, however, it's the payment source that dictates where somebody lands.
Okay.
And I'll explain to you how that, just to give you an example
Money
of that.
talks.
Well, unfortunately, for somebody who needs memory care, for example, I was mentioning to you earlier that those Medicaid beds that we have in our, in assisted living, but they're not in memory care. And so very often, if somebody needs a secured memory neighborhood because they have pretty advanced Alzheimer's and they need that safer, smaller, more structured environment, if they can't afford to pay privately in assisted living, their only other option is a nursing home if they're on Medicaid. So unfortunately, it's the payment source that sometimes dictates where people land. Because if you need the care and you can't afford to pay privately, and very often these assisted livings that have Medicaid beds are full or have wait lists, you might end up at a nursing home.
Okay, interesting. I mean, and unfortunately, it is very expensive. So we're not talking a few dollars.
And yes, and I think people hear the Bristol, they think, oh, we can't afford that. But even within the Bristol, there's a range of rates. So we definitely do have some communities that are priced more affordably than others.
Right.
And that's really why I encourage people to at least make the phone call. Maybe you might think, oh, I can't afford the Bristol, but we might be able to find a Bristol community that might be affordable for you.
So the first thing I hear when we talk to people about assisted living is, it's too expensive. They'll never have the money to go in. But I wouldn't assume that. Like I was saying before, get the information from the source. I'd certainly inquire, directly to you or someone there. Don't assume it's too expensive.
Yeah. And very often, if they own their own home, and the home is no longer safe for them. And I think, people want to leave a legacy, right? Let's put the cards on the table.
Right.
Like people are like, oh, I want, that's what they were going to leave for their kids. But I think those times might be behind us because people are living longer.
Right.
And that house that they've paid their mortgage for 30 years and have lived in for so many decades is what's going to enable them to live safely and with security and with dignity. And they might not have, it was mom and dad's money, and they should be able to utilize that investment that they paid into for so many years to provide care for themselves.
This is very generic, but you have your house. You're going to sell your house and come into the Bristol with proper planning. I'm not saying, a certain amount of that money can be put aside.
Exactly.
So that 5 years down the road, if I'm out of money or don't have enough, that's when I may be able to discuss with you going to the Medicaid piece of a Bristol.
Correct.
And maintaining my money for my children and my heirs. So you can have it today. You don't have it immediately, but you can have it, and that's why we push people to plan. Because if you don't plan, you're going to put them out and say, John, but you have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting there. We can't put you in the Medicaid, pay the bill. But if it's in a trust and protected, then you say, guess what? When the time comes, if there's availability, there's lots of ifs. But providing you do the planning and in advance, you have the potential. That's all we tell people. Whether it works or not, 5 years down the road, everything changes anyway.
I have a question about insurance and whether or not you help at all. In other words, we come across people who have older long-term care policies that they bought many years ago before we knew them. Sometimes it's hard to navigate getting a claim in, and it could get quite complicated. Does anyone in the Bristol help the families, like putting claims in and, hey, this is, like, decipher what kind of policy they have?
So I'm going to refer them to you, Peter.
Yeah.
We try not, we'll take a look at it. Sometimes it's pretty cut and dry, but if there is any kind of conflict that you're having with the carrier, we really do suggest to families to talk to the experts about it. We're an expert in a lot of things, but
so you're not getting on the phone with insurance company and trying to help with claims?
Depending on the situation, we do have a case manager at all of our communities, sort of acting as a social worker or somebody to help families to navigate. So if it's something simple and it's really a phone call and it's something that we can do, to help the family, we might do that. So it really depends on the circumstance. But very often, if the carrier is completely denying the claim, for one reason or another, we're going to try to get them to an expert who can help them navigate that.
And beyond, we're basically out of time. But to be honest with you, your job, from my perspective, is to take care of my mother, not to be her financial advisor, not to be her attorney, because if something does go wrong 6 months down the road, you did your best, but that's not your...
Sometimes people are lost, though, when it comes to that.
I'm agreeing.
Financially lost. Some people just don't, obviously, not everybody's an expert in everything. And unfortunately, we have seen some situations where people have literally hit walls trying to deal with insurance companies for various reasons. But I don't want to. I think we're out of time.
Yeah, we're basically out of time. Actually, Julie, do me a favor, which we didn't do. Could you give out your phone number?
I can certainly do that. So you can reach me at 631-926-8864. That is my direct cell. Whether you have any questions about assisted living or even just navigating the elder care continuum of array of services on Long Island, I know a lot of people, and if I can't help you, chances are I know somebody who can. So I'm always happy to make a referral.
Perfect. And Peter?
Our number.
Do the whole number.
The whole number is 516-719-6396. That's where you could reach us for anything.
And that's basically it. We're out of time. This has been another wonderful show. Thank you so much, Julie. And the most important thing that I want to make sure that people realize, everything we talk about here is a process. It's not an event. This is not one and done. This is ongoing, even like we just talked briefly about getting on the Medicaid at some point. So that's it for today. May the hand of a friend always be near, with help and support, whether you need it or not. We're always here for you. North Shore TV is always here for you. And wonderful, wonderful times is all we wish for everybody ahead. Thank you for watching our show today, and we will be back next week with another wonderful guest. Thank you.